How's it going, everyone? BrewUnited here on my birthday, my 44th birthday, doing my Saturday video for Seiken Densetsu 3, or, in English, Trials of Mana, or Mana, if you're all fancy. I'm not. So this game is a classic on the Super Famicom that was never brought over to the US, and it was really difficult because you'd have to speak Japanese to be able to play it. Until recently, it's actually been converted over to a modern game. Got a similar Final Fantasy VII type remake effect on it, but not quite as good. But I'll let you be the judge of that. What I'm going to show you today is not the remake. It's actually going to be the classic retro game from 25 years ago called Trials of Mana. And I translated it from Japanese. The game is actually an import from Japan, and I used the Retron 5 to do it. I actually have a video that I will link in the description if you want to do that yourself. And let's dive into the game. Hope you enjoy. You know, thanks to a lot of people that put time in, we can actually enjoy these games, because in the past, between 1995 and many years later, maybe the best thing you could do was actually download and print a translation that you have to follow along and kind of figure it out yourself. But talking about the game is, now that it's available and translated, and even there's a new version, when you start out the game, you can pick characters that have entirely different stories. So you can start off in a different place. I picked Hawk, which is part of the Navarre Thieves kind of group, and I'm going to pick another couple of people here that basically have different stories as well. So whoever you want to start with, starts you at a new place. We're going to start with Hawk, who I thought is just a fun character. You know, it's always fun. I'm drawn to thieves in general. Not that I'm a thief in real life, but just that assassin-y, rogue type play really calls to me. And the intro is very Final Fantasy IV/Final Fantasy II with the way that the graphics look. And listen to this music. You know, what do you think about that? I think one of the best parts about a lot of these 16-bit classic games is the music. I actually recorded this in the highest possible resolution that I could, and basically HDMI coming right out of the Retron 5, and that went directly into a 4K rendering software. So this is about as good as I could get it. And really, I think the 16-bit graphics hold up so much better than the 8-bit. And then when we look at the N64, I still think that these graphics look better than an N64 does today. I don't know, what do you think? Pop it in the comments if you disagree, or if you're tracking with me there. So Hawk to me is this classic Squaresoft character. You know, got a lot of sass to him, is talking a lot of trash, and is just a fun character to play. And he really fits into the persona of the good thief. So he's taking money here from people who obviously are are also stealing money. You know, it's that kind of capitalism versus thievery, Robin Hood versus, you know, the whole thing. And that's really a fascinating piece of this game is, you know, you can start with really anyone, but when you start with the thief, this is what it is. So we're going to Navarre, into the Sand Fortress, and one of the things you're immediately greeted with is the Flame Khan, as he's called, is the ruler of the area. And he has a new person that's kind of behind the throne. This almost pulls me back to a Final Fantasy II, Final Fantasy IV type setup, because here we have him. You know, it's kind of like when Cecil returns back to talk to the King of Baron, and you immediately have Bagan off to the side, kind of as the puppet master over what's going on. So Isabella, to me, is the Bagan of this. Not trying to give too much away, but really laying it out there that the plots, and really the year it was created really wasn't too far apart. I think Final Fantasy IV or Final Fantasy II in the US was 1992. This game came out in 1995, so I'm sure it had some crossover in the people who did it. And that's one of those things that you really look at and you say, wow, I feel like I've played some of this game before, but it's also the little tiny bits that pull you in, and some of the really fantastic story writing that I think they've done over the years at Squaresoft, or Square-Enix now. So this game is also carrying on some of the love interest stories. So Jessica is the love interest of Hawk, or Hawk is the love interest of Jessica, to give some equality to that statement. Is that I'm watching the gameplay, I'm also thinking really Cecil and Rosa is Jessica and Hawk. The story's very similar. Hey, someone's changed. The king's changed. The Flame Con of sorts. It's that interesting name, the Flame Con. I wonder if that's a translation thing. I really have to thank the people who did the translation for this game, because without that translation, I wouldn't be able to play it on the Super Famicom version. And I know there's a new version, but a retro channel talking about the new version exclusively is really not doing justice to kind of the legacy and the nostalgia of just how these graphics and how this music, this 16-bit music and the gameplay really crafted what's come out since then. You know, these are some of the games that really created the modern game. They always stretched the envelope. They were maxing out the hardware's potential. And you got to give some respect to that. You know, you have to really look back to how did we get where we are today. And I was reading an article last night about Squaresoft games, and specifically back to Final Fantasy 1. And someone made the kind of bold statement and got absolutely destroyed on Reddit over it, was saying that you need to play Final Fantasy 1 on the NES. You have to play where some of the game mechanics didn't exist. You know, and in this game, some of the game mechanics are definitely wanting from the modern game. One of the cool things you could do is actually hit, I believe it was the B button, and you can run around. You know, that's something that you can push people out of the way in this game. You can run, and a lot of the annoyances from the earlier games, kind of Squaresoft from 1992, was that you couldn't move people out of the way. You've probably seen some of my gameplay in the past where you're trying to push people out of the way, and they just sit there. And you have to wait till they move. You know, you have to wait till basically their programming dictates that they're able to move. So this game really is building upon a lot of what I would say are the deficiencies from the Final Fantasy II, Final Fantasy IV game series. But when I look at the article that I was referencing there, they're talking about even attacking in the original NES version. If you had two people attacking the same mob and the mob dies, then your second attack would fail because it was targeting that one. But in the later revisions of the game, they basically had completely removed that mechanic, or fixed it, so to speak. And that was one of the things that made the game a little bit more difficult, or a little bit more annoying. See, I just pushed that guy out of the way. So here at the beginning, we've done a great job. We have found out that Isabelle is somehow influencing the FlameCon. We have managed to completely tick off our love interest, Jessica. And now we're going to go find probably our best friend in the game, or our brother-in-arms named Eagle. So we have Hawk and Eagle. And who are we looking for next? Falcon? That could be him. So, you know, they refer to the FlameCon as Dad. Basically, these two are like brothers since they've been kids. And the story's starting to build here. You know, this I would almost draw a parallel to. Wow, it's like Cecil and Cain. You know, there's so many parallels to that Final Fantasy series within Squaresoft. And it's a story that grabs me. You know, I don't know if you're in the same thought pattern as I am, but when I play these games, the similar type storylines pull me right back in. So one of the things I did not like while I was playing this intro, you know, the first 20 minutes or so, was the sand outside of Navarre is confusing where you can walk and where you can't. You'll see that in a minute. You'll see where I'm trying to go, and this castle, just in general, is extremely confusing. You know, you're walking around, you're getting lost, and there's even little nooks and crannies in here like that. I mean, where am I going there? I don't know. It's tons of little areas, and some of them I'll point them out in a second here. They really are confusing. So what I'm trying to do now is to go find Eagle, and when we find him, we're going to start eavesdropping on the FlameCon and also on Isabel, and we're going to see really what they're up to. Something isn't right. So he's not there in the throne room. Let's look to the couple of areas here that I think they're at. Okay, that's not right. Yeah, let's maybe go to the other side and see what we have here. So again, I'm confused, but I kind of like that. You know, I like a thing that's not so straightforward. So, this is correct. Okay, so we're heading into kind of that secret room where we're going to have a conversation. And Eagle is definitely already eavesdropping on the FlameCon and also on Isabel to really see what's going on. Alright, what do we have here? Looks like some type of vampire, you know? So Isabel is clearly not who she seems. She is definitely someone more sinister and has a plot here against the FlameCon. So Eagle and Hawk spring their trap. They come out, and I like how the unknown man. That's always the Squaresoft way. There's always someone that's unknown or never named until they have to be named. So we now find out that Isabel is definitely more powerful than we think. And the first thing she does is to put a spell on Eagle. And Eagle basically is now your enemy. So the first part you can actually fight in, you find out some of the mechanics here. This, when I first played it, I nearly died because I didn't realize he was killing me. And guess what? He can. So the best thing to do here is just go all out. You can see the attack. It's actually a couple of different buttons. That one that I hit there was actually the special attack. So you can hold down B and do that. And if you're hitting A, you're just doing the standard attack. But you can see I'm really getting hit a lot, probably because of a lack of ability on the game. And I'm really fresh to it. You know, this is a game that I haven't played in a while. Okay, so I bested Eagle in a one-on-one. And it's not over there, unfortunately. Isabel is really someone who likes to pile on the pain. And here she is casting a spell and basically finishing off our good friend. Despite the lack of voice acting in these games, the text games still do pull me in. Now, I'd love to know, in later generations of game players, is that more difficult? I think it detracts, I think, from someone who may have been used to high CGI and lots of voiceovers. But maybe I'm wrong. Pop it in the comments. I'd love to know and get a conversation started here. You know, from your generation, is that a detractor now? Even for me, I think I could go either way. I mean, there's some games that I just cannot imagine being text-based. You know, that you're playing graphically. And, look at this. Let me pause my monologuing here. So Isabel has framed this entire thing on Hawk. And the FlameCon and Isabel have thrown me in the dungeon. And what's happening here is basically he's going to just await execution for his crimes. But it doesn't end there. You know, Isabel is way more sinister. So she is even saying, hey, you want to talk? Since you can't do anything, I'll go ahead and take care of Jessica. So she's really layering on poor Hawk's misery. You know, she has a cursed necklace on Jessica, and she's saying, look, you better stay quiet, or that's the end of her. Wow. I mean, his best friend just died. He's now in jail, framed for it. Isabel is completely pulling one over on him, basically threatens Jessica. I'm trying to break out here, as you can see. There's actually a place up the top there that you end up getting out. So he's trying everything to get out. You know, he's bumping his head against the wall. He's going to hit it as hard as he can to break through, but it's not going to work. What do you think of this game so far? Is this something that you would play? I think the graphics do hold up. I'd love to hear if you think the graphics hold up, you know, especially for a 16-bit game. So here's Jessica, and now it gets even worse in my thought. Because she's asking, hey, did you do it? This is definitely not something you can do. And then all of a sudden, that thought comes into his head from Isabel that, remember what I said, you can't say anything. So now Jessica's assumption is wow, he really did this. So this is such a hard beginning for a character, but it also builds all the tension that you feel, at least I feel, when I play these games. How do you feel when you play these games? You know, when you get this kind of, the world is against you, and how do you turn that around in your mind when you play? I really want to then turn it around and say, right, that's it. I'm going to get my revenge on this character. Can't really get revenge in real life without some serious consequences, but in these games, you definitely can. So Nikita is one of the characters that, if you remember from the first intro scene, was actually on the heist with us. So Nikita is actually the person who carries around the loot. That's what I can piece together. So now that Nikita has sprung us out, nearly blew us up, by the way, we have to get out. So we have got to escape. So what Nikita basically says is, hey, I am going to take care of Jessica. I'm going to remain here. And we're off to see the Priest of Light. So Wendell's a place that's a long way away. It is actually going to be a ship ride away. And one of the characters that we picked as a partner character is actually there. So, you know, it's really a bit of dynamic beginning on the game. You could have picked another character and it would start completely differently. So this is one of the things I really thought this game was amazing about, is you can actually start at a different place. You know, this is a bit of Suikoden as well. Suikoden 3 had that. You know, I love to bring other games into kind of the dynamic that they all borrowed and built off of, because it's really interesting. So even, you can see the fight scene still. It is totally different than other Squaresoft games. And what was the original one? Was it The Secret of Mana? This is the third one, so there's been a couple more. I can't remember at this time. But they all had this fighting dynamic. Alright, he's up there. Not going to be able to come down, so... yeah, keep hitting the wrong button there. The special attack will just keep going if it's got any type of person close to you. Okay, do you remember when I said it's hard to see where you can go? So, where I just walked up there, at least to me, wasn't obvious. These are a little bit more obvious, but let me point out something once we get past a couple of fights. Yeah, this one is not too hard. Down 16 health, though. That kind of scared me. So down here, this is the part... Now look at this. Where can I get down? You'd think you can. But I'm going to run back and forth a couple of times. And I can't find a place to go down or go up. Maybe it's just because I'm not that good. I don't know. I'll hold back my own opinion of my playing here, but clearly I can't find a place. So when I go back in, this is actually another way. So that's, to me, maybe they shouldn't make it too obvious, but I don't know. It was a little difficult. Okay, so here we finally made it out. And Hawk is really showing his emotions here. He's got to return, he's got to avenge his friend's death, rescue Jessica, and I think come back for Nikita. I mean, Nikita was really cool to him. You know, broke him out, helped him. And this part coming up here, I want your opinion on this. It sounds... This music here, listen to this. Does that remind you of anything? To me, it reminds me of when Cecil and Kane finally leave Baron Castle for the first time. I think the music's very similar. Could be the same composer. I actually need to go back and check that. And like any good Squaresoft game, or any good game from this time period, I love how they roll right into the credits as they're starting the game. You know, it's kind of like movies from the early 80s. They used to always have the credits before. I think until Star Wars. Somebody told me that once. And I actually need to verify that, so I'm not trying to create some internet rumor here. But Star Wars did not have it at the beginning. And that was kind of a trend, I think by some of the movie unions, if I'm not mistaken, that basically we should show this in the beginning. I think Star Wars broke that. And I don't know. I think you can definitely fit some of this in the beginning. I think it adds a little bit to it. It feels like the game's ending now because we're so used to seeing the credits at the end of the game. So again, I get such hard vibes of Final Fantasy when I'm watching this. You know, Final Fantasy IV to me is kind of the pinnacle of gaming at one point in my life. Actually, no airships here, so a little different. All right, so we're in the castle city here, and we have escaped the Navarre Sandcastle and the Flame Con, specifically Isabel. I know nothing about the plot beyond that, but what I will say is we're going to end it about here. I'm going to get your opinion on this now. I think we've put quite a bit of thoughts into your head about what type of game this is, and along with my rambling. So, this is a game you'd want to play? It's definitely one I want to continue playing. Really fun. Has kind of a flair of Final Fantasy, obviously because of Squaresoft, and it also has a little bit of the kind of Legend of Zelda-esque, maybe Grandia type flair. So if you're interested in this game, there's definitely a way you can play it. You can order the old classic. They're going for about $20-something. Not a lot. And if you had a Retron 5, you can basically translate it yourself. I have a video that I'm popping in the link to do that, as I mentioned earlier. And if you want to skip all of that headache and play a more modern game, there is a remake of it, as I mentioned. It's on Steam, it's on Switch, it's on a couple other consoles, I think maybe even PlayStation and Xbox. Maybe you should check it out. So again, Trials of Mana, that's a wrap, everyone. See you soon, and take care. You're still here? Like and subscribe. Go watch another video.